bugs are so loud, so if you can hear them, I'm sorry.
Hello, bees. It's that time of year again.
It's Ren Fair season, which means it is time for me to break out ye old sewing machine and update some of my costumes. I have at least 4 cosplays that I'm trying to get done this year, each of varying difficulties, and 4 is more than I've ever done for the Ren Fair or cosplay in my history of ever. But we're just gonna do it. We're just gonna do it. The first weekend theme of the Ren Fair was pirates, so you know, of course, I had to do the one, the only, first mate, Jester Lavorre. Also, for the record, if you're worried about Critical Role spoilers, I will not be disclosing anything besides the official art of Reunion Jester. There will be no talk of any of the episodes, Campaign 2 or otherwise, so this is not my first time going to the Ren Fair as Jester Lavorre, if you can't tell. But this is the first time that you guys get to see the process, and also the first time that I'm going as Pirate Jester. Let's get to work. First things first is getting some patterns printed and cut out. I know there's a huge collection of patterns available at your local craft store, and those are less work technically, but honestly, I like getting very specific patterns and shopping from Etsy. There's a good range of really great cosplay pattern makers out there. My personal favorites being Cospayton and Indigo. Both do a really great job at having easy to assemble pattern pieces that print quite nicely, and they always come with very well written instructions. And I always tell myself that it's absolutely not a waste to be printing pattern pieces, even with how much paper I throw away, because I'll be reusing a lot of these patterns. For the Jester Lavorre reunion outfit, I had 2 patterns that I used. Indigo Patterns' Reunion Jester pattern, and the Pattern Studios Hakama inspired pants. I found out that a lot of Reunion Jester patterns out there only feature the top half of Jester's outfit, so the pink puff sleeve shirt, the bolero, and the overcoat dress, because for quite a long time, the bottom half of Reunion Jester's outfit was not released in any official pictures, so whether she was wearing pants or a skirt was very much up to speculation for quite a while, which honestly I might have made the costume with a skirt anyways, because you know, who's to say that Jester doesn't have like 70 different outfits for different pirate days? That would be very on brand. So once I have the pattern pieces cut out, it's time to get sewing. As you can see, I have cleaned up my sewing room quite a bit since our last video. My husband got some shelves for his tools and thought that I would also like some extra table/shelves for my own fabric, so look at everything so organized by color. It's beautiful, very appealing. But let's get to work onto that pink puff sleeve shirt. I started with this piece because it was going to be the easiest of the things that I needed to make, and also my mom had just given me a huge pile of pink fabric, which heck yeah, we love not having to buy things. Anyways, Indigo's instructions were all super clear for the pattern. It's literally 6 pieces, sewing front and back together, and you don't even have to sew gathering stitches because everything is going to be gathered by elastic. Indigo did a super convenient thing where instead of sewing elastic directly to the fabric or sewing elastic into the hemline, they suggested using bias tape as a casing for the elastic, which is just straight up genius. I'm not sure why it's something that I've never thought of doing myself, but yeah, that was great. But yeah, ta-da, the easiest part of the cosplay complete. Onto the bolero. Again, it's another really straightforward pattern. Unfortunately, I did not have the right fabric for it at all. The nice thing about Jester Lavorre is that it's really not hard to look like her if you're doing the whole body paint thing. So as far as colors and accuracy go, it's not really a big deal to have things in the wrong style or different colors. The rough thing about Jester Lavorre is that she is always covered in little embroidery and trinkets. And then also, admittedly, she is a little bit more cool toned than me, and by a little I mean she's literally blue. So when I'm satisfied with how color coordination looks on me and my skin, it sometimes ends up looking a lot more out of place when I'm blue, but it is what it is. Also, look at this shot of me in my green shirt with the bolero outer layer on. It's giving Shrek. Anyways, back to what I was saying about not having the right fabric. I'm using a thrifted curtain for the outside layer of the bolero and whatever purple satin I happen to have in my own stash of scraps for the lining. Jester's bolero is much darker in the reference image, which I think would have been nicer looking overall. Also, if I hadn't used fabric that had so much texture to it, I would have been able to get nice stitching detailing in. But you know what? Honestly, I like the bolero a lot as I made it as a solo piece for future Ren Fair visits. visits. Often during the season, I have people who visit me because I live quite close to a rather large Ren fair, and they may or may not have their own costumes, so I always like to have a nice variety of pieces as either basic layers like skirts and dresses, or little details to help them buff up their own outfits like elf ears, corsets, etc. And I do feel like this bolero in particular is a really good piece for that, and I'm not going to lie. I love how it feels, I love how it fits, and I love the little belt buckle details. My cat is sick and tired of me and my shenanigans, but hey, we're 2 out of 4 pieces down, so we can't stop here. On to the pants. This is a pattern not from Indigo, but instead the Pattern Studio. They had a really nice video tutorial for the best way to assemble the pieces as part of the downloadable bundle that you get when buying the pattern, and that made it really easy to follow and figure out what to do. I actually have had my eye on this pattern for a really long time for a number of different reasons, cosplay and otherwise, so finally getting to buy it was pretty cool, although it did come with a weird surprise that I was not expecting, which I'll show y'all later. These pants are super nice. The only elastic is in the hem around the leg, and the top is made from 2 flaps that have ties that go one in the front and one in the back. It's just a very easy, straightforward pattern. Or it should have been, because of course I had to attach at least one of the pieces backward and then ended up having to seam rip it and re-sew it. Footage not available, but I assure you it happened. It always happens. The fun surprise is that, surprise, the things that I thought were pockets are just holes. I'm not sure if it's because I'm too thick for the pattern or if it's because it was meant to be like that. I was a little bummed out at first, but then I realized this meant free reign to more pocket space in whatever I wore underneath the pants. And look, pockets in a Ren Fair costume is a luxury, so I would consider this a fortuitous event. And last but not least is the overdress, which I took some mad creative liberties on. This was because I had recently watched Prickly Alpaca's vampire waistcoat video, which is mwah, chef's kiss. But also I found this glorious fabric in the cosplay aisle at the not so local but nearest Joann's to me. In the original photo, there is a more purple burgundy fabric that Jester is wearing, but I was mostly looking for a detailed enough brocade because I was not particularly aching to be adding all the little stitching into the outfit, and I thought brocade would help get the fancy vibe across without me actually having to meticulously sew on each piece. Also, I have been coveting this fabric every single time I've walked past it in the store for a few months now, and I needed just one good excuse to buy it. I cannot express to you how excited I am for this fabric. I have a vision, okay? Bear with me, bear with me. Also, it was on sale. It was still very expensive, but it was on sale. The overdress waistcoat was quite the undertaking. It took me a couple of days because unfortunately I have to work to survive, which I think I am so brave for doing. Anyways, it's 3 layers per panel: the shell layer, the structural layer, and the lining layer, and there are 8 panels in total, so that's a lot of serging. Like, a lot. But once I got all the pieces sorted into their respective piles and also took a break to get over the anxiety of having to sew so many pieces together, it is assembly time. And putting together the outer layer and trying it on, seeing how it swooshed around, you know I was having a good cackle to myself. I was freaking stoked. I just thought it was so beautiful. But 1 layer down, 2 to go. For the structural layer, I had a couple of different boning options available to me, and most fortunately I have this boning which you can actually sew directly to your garment instead of having to make a casing for, which I love. So I cut out some pieces to length, rounding the corners so they wouldn't poke me. Some people recommend gluing a little bit of ribbon or fabric to the ends of the boning so it has even less of a chance of poking you or poking out of the fabric, but honestly I felt like with as many fabric layers as this was going to have, I would probably be okay. Also, I was feeling a little lazy. With all the individual layers assembled and the structural pieces in, it was time to actually pin all the layers together, sew everything up, and then iron it all nice and flat. Or at least try to iron it, but have your cat sit on your ironing mat and just look so stinking cute that you feel like a monster for asking him to move. I also never got footage for it, but I ended up buying hook and eye tape and sewing that as the closure mechanism in the front, which turned out it's incredibly painful putting on that many hook and eye connections when you're putting it on. But you know what? At least it's secure. And for the back, I put in a bunch of little grommets to create a lace-up closure. Also, you can see that gold rope hem that I've got going on there. Just ignore that. Pretend it's not there yet, because I encountered a teeny tiny problem, which is it looks so cool, except somehow at this point I figured out it was too big and that I would end up having to take in the side. As nice as the lining layers were, I was not going to take it completely apart and resew each of the layers. I just took a bunch of pins and pinned along my body, sewed up that curve, pushing the excess to the side. It's not really the most elegant of solutions, but you gotta do what you gotta do. Turns out having no idea what your own body looks like on a day-to-day basis, and also picking up cosplay and sewing as a hobby, is incredibly difficult. Who would have guessed? Once we hurdled that mental breakdown, I can finally add all the appliques and details that I definitely wasn't trying to add much earlier in the process. This fun curly applique that I used to cover the hook and eye tape, and also my bad corset channel sewing, was something I bought for my first Jester Lavorre cosplay but never ended up using. I thought it was iron-on because it has this sort of sticky plastic stuff on the other side, but either it was just too old or perhaps it was never iron-on all along, because all it did was become very stinky. So I just sewed it on with this gold thread that I've been using pretty much non-stop through this entire project. I reattached the rope hem for the top of the bodice, and for my favorite detail, which I miraculously had the perfect amount of, was this beautiful tassel hem. I am so glad that I bought it. It's my favorite part of the outfit, and I was so pleased with how the overcoat came out. I wish that I could incorporate this into my everyday outfits, but you know, for someone who will literally paint herself blue just to sweat for 4 hours while watching people ride horses and hit each other with sticks, I am terrified of being perceived in my day-to-day life. So statement pieces are not my go-to. You know what? This bad boy might change that about me. Maybe. But that concludes the clothing section of putting together Jester Lavorre, and now it's time for the reveal. I know, it's kind of disappointing. I wasn't blue for the final footage. Trust me, I wanted to be, but unfortunately, time. Also, and I know it's way overdone for YouTube, but I thought I'd put together a video of me and how I do my Jester Lavorre makeup. I don't know, I thought that'd be fun. It might not be, it might just be stupid, but you know what? We don't have a choice. Part 1 is here. Part 2 has to happen, and I'm gonna be blue for that one, I promise. I already talked a fair bit about what I would have done differently. I think maybe if I hadn't been in such a vampy mindset, I would have picked a more burgundy brocade fabric just to have it a little more accurate. Like I said, this looks pretty good on my own skin tone, but unfortunately with blue it's kind of weird. I don't know. That being said, I don't regret making it as it is. I really like it. It's kind of something that I want to wear in day-to-day life. I think I'll try to wear this to the next appropriate situation, maybe if I go to a concert ever or grocery shopping. I don't know. Probably not grocery shopping. I do wish for these ropey things right here on the hem that I had some metal caps to put on it. They actually fray really, really badly, and I put some glue on the end to try to keep it from doing that, but the cut didn't stay clean, so I think some metal like little cap thingies would have helped with that. And it also would have just cleaned up the look, really kicked it up a notch. Other than what I've already complained about, I can't really complain more. I'm pretty happy with how it came out. I've already seen myself blue in it. I think it's also pretty comfy as far as Ren Fair costumes go, and as far as Ren Fair costumes that I've worn to the Ren Fair go. And stay tuned for part 2 to see me actually do a reveal as Jester Lavorre with the wig and the horns and all the paint. I think it's going to be really fun. Or it might not be next week. It might be week after next. You're just gonna have to stick around and find out. You're just gonna have to subscribe and to see all the rest of the shenanigans I have put forth. Like I said, I have 3 other whole entire cosplays that I need to either make or update. So we got a lot of sewing content. If you like digital art, if you like this sewing content, if you like cosplay stuff, oh boy, am I here, and I'll be here until I can't be here anymore, which is kind of arbitrary, but is the truth. And trust me, I haven't forgotten that I have a Pike Part 1 out. Pike Part 2 is one of the 4 cosplays that I do want to work on. I will be getting back to that, and it should be finished soon, ideally. I don't know. I always overschedule myself, but hopefully nothing goes too wrongly in the upcoming weeks, but who knows? Not me.